Hi, Mike again, here with my next video. Today I'm going to show you how I made, or I'm going to make, I have not done it yet, the countertop for the kitchen cabinet here. So the first thing I did was measured all the dimensions. My front edge here is a little bit wider than the rest of it, so I just have to keep that in mind. I measured the depth, obviously, and then I measured the gaps behind because I'm going to put in a little backsplash, but it's going to have to kind of stop here and then come out and then go back around. So I have all of those measurements. I'm going to basically map them out on my remaining OSB. I will cut out the sinkhole from here. I will cut out the sinkhole in the OSB, also the holes for the faucet. Then I'll put it all together and finish it and hope that I end up with something decent looking. Here we go. Okay, so I have cut out the hole for the faucet and now I have traced the hole for the sink. Now the directions say that you should leave 3/4 of an inch from the edge. This is only maybe a 1/2 inch. But in this scenario I don't have much of a choice because we have limited space. So faucet hole there, and then back here there is the edge where the backsplash will be, a little bit of a gap between those. So now I'm going to cut out that hole using a jigsaw. Every new bit of this project is very exciting, and I just got done cutting the hole for the sink, and it fits and it looks amazing. I am now sanding the heck out of this OSB to give it a smooth surface and a slightly rounded top edge and corners there, just to make it a little bit nicer to the touch. Once I'm done sanding all of the individual pieces, I will then join them all together, sand them again once they're together to create smooth edges, smooth joining points, and then I will prime them, sand again, prime, possibly sand again, prime, just to create a very smooth surface. OSB is definitely not the smoothest plywood that you can work with, but I think with a little bit of elbow grease, it will save me some money because it's leftovers from the subfloor, so I didn't have to purchase any additional wood. So we'll keep going with all the sanding. While sanding the kitchen cabinet pieces, I'm also going to sand the desk. That's this piece here, cut from the same material. It's going to be finished in the same way, so I'm doing it all at once. But one thing I have to keep in mind when doing this is pretty much the entire desk, top and bottom, is going to be visible, so I need to sand and finish both sides. That will pose some additional challenges, but I don't want any sort of exposed plywood to be visible. For instance, when the desk is in the upright position and in use, also probably wouldn't feel nice to have unsanded plywood rub against my knees. So I am making sure to finish both sides of this piece. The pieces are all assembled, and now it is time for some serious sanding. So now I'm using some spackling and nail hole filler to fill in the gaps where the boards meet to create a smooth surface. When I'm done, I want it to look like it's one solid piece so that I can create an effective stone finish illusion. So I'm putting this in all of the gaps. It goes on pink, this one in particular, and then dries white, so you know when it's dry, which is really nice. So I just apply it and then I spread it in. Alright, I have now used the nail hole filler and covered up the entire seam. I did some work on the corners. This corner in particular had some visible screws, so I covered that up. Now I'll let this dry. You can see the white part is already dry. I'll let this dry and give it a final sanding before going on to priming. I did also fill some of the holes and just little divots in the surface just to make it a little bit smoother. Okay, so I did a ton of filling and sanding, and then I did my first coat of primer. And when I sanded that, I still found that there's some dips, some areas that needed a little love, so I just did another layer of the spackle. I'll let this dry, sand that down, and then do a second coat of primer. And again, I'm doing both the desk and also the countertop. So over there, drying. I used Krylon's Shimmer Metallic in Black Shimmer as my main paint. Before adhering the countertop, I added a tan stereo fabric, which I'll also use elsewhere in the van, to the back of the cabinet. So it fits up around the lower edge of the countertop, gives the back of the cabinet a finished look, and provides a little additional insulation. I used a silicone caulk to adhere the sink and faucet. I did make the mistake of using a white one initially, which created a bit of a mess and a lot to clean up, so I would suggest clear if you do something similar. Alright, so the cabinet is finally done. I am so excited. There was some minor cracking when I installed the cabinet top on top, but I have repaired that using spackle and lacquer, but that's all set to go now. So now I have to figure out how I'm actually going to install everything here in the van. So there are some bolts on the side here. I think I'm going to use that to attach the cabinet to the wall so that I don't have to worry about it tipping, and then I'm probably going to screw it into the subfloor. I'll create some pocket holes, screw down, and then fill those holes so they're not obvious. So the next step will be to actually put the cabinet in here, figure out where this bolt will line up with, and then drill the appropriate hole. It took quite a bit of work to get the cabinet properly aligned, the holes drilled, the bolts lined up with the holes in the van, but ultimately I did get it all worked out. Before bolting the cabinet in place, I did run the cord for the power strip that lives inside of the cabinet through the hole in the back and then into the channel underneath the cabinet. And so here we are. So what happened? Well, what happened was that I belong to a Facebook group called RV Interiors, and I saw somebody who painted their cabinets teal, and I said I really like that. So I painted mine teal, but then with the teal, which I really like, the original countertop that I made from oriented strand board, the texture of that just didn't mesh, and the black was maybe a little bit too much with the teal. So I completely remade the countertop from scratch using plywood, this time rather than OSB, so that it has a smoother finish. I then painted it gray with the same gray that I will use in a wash on the flooring, which I'll show you in a future video, and have now installed it. So I will not show you that whole entire process all over again, but it's the same process you saw me do with the oriented strand board. I just used a plywood instead to create a smoother finish. So a little bit different than the original cabinet video and countertop that I had planned, but I am really happy with the way it turned out. I have installed the sink, which screws in through the bottom. I installed the faucet, and then in another video I'll show you how the whole drain and faucet pump and all of that works. Thanks for watching.